Hello, my name is Adam Queen. I'm the greenhouse and cutting garden manager here at the Dixon. Trying to highlight the transition between the tulip hangover, as Dale calls it, and now we're into summer blooms. And the biggest key to that is the day lengths are getting longer. The heat units, which is the actual temperature of everything, is getting warmer. And now we're transitioning more to things like zinnias, amaranth, ageratum, stuff like that. And even things like dianthus are starting to phase out because that's more of a cooler plant. We're going to talk about some corn. We've had a few comments as to why are we planting corn in the flower garden, but corn also has a tassel, which is a flower. And I chose it because I grew up on a farm and I grew up around 500 acres of corn every year. So this kind of reminds me of home. And the flower head, which is the tassel here, is going to make a big inflorescence, which in old days was used to make brooms, but we use it in the arrangements. So it's a really good dried cut, lasts forever once it's dried, all winter. And yeah, sorghum bicolor. Welcome back to the cutting garden. So here we have Zenia elegans, which is a really good cut flower. And this is a new variety from Johnny Selected Seeds called agave. And I like it because it's iridescent and both like a cactus type. And cactus type flowers have, zinnias have this type of spray to them. They're not as like tight as the double ones you might see. But a lot of people get confused because for cut flowers, you want a really long stem, which you can see on this one. But then over here we have a bedding zinnia, which is Zohar Double Raspberry Ripple. And you can see it's a lot shorter and it won't get much taller than this. So that's the two different zinnias that we grow here at the Dixon. So we're standing here in the perennial border. This is a new development at the Dixon. This perennial border is less than 1 year old so far. We started planting in March of this year. It was me and a team of volunteers, about 10 or 15 strong, and we were planting maybe about 100 to 125 plants a week for about 5 weeks. But we eventually got it done. We got all the holes filled in, and now we have a living perennial border. But the first plant up is actually not a perennial. This is a reseeder from last year. This is called Ricinus communis, or otherwise known as castor bean, which is actually a very highly poisonous plant, but only if ingested or inhaled. But it's a really cool tropical plant. This is one of those situations where it's fun to see what comes up in the garden. We didn't place this, we didn't plant this just reseeded by itself. And it works really well with the blues and the purples that are going on right next to it. Over here we have a salvia, which has been blooming its head off the entire month of April and May. This one's called Unplugged So Blue. It's a Salvia farinaceae hybrid. Over here we have Verbena bonariensis, which is a cultivar named Vanity. It's a new selection we've been growing here. Next to it over here, we have a native, which is Liatris spicata, straight species. And it's really cool because it actually starts flowering from the top of the inflorescence down. Great for pollinators, really interesting spiky foliage. So here we have a few native selections in the perennial border. This is Echinacea purpura, although it's not very purple. Its cultivated name is white swan. So even though you might have Echinacea purpura, you can have several different varieties that are cultivated within this genus of species. And it's a good standby garden plant. It's been used for centuries. The most popular one is probably Magnus, has been used for so long, but white swan's doing really well for us. And the perennial border design was by Tom Pellet, and it's really interesting because he started on one end with mostly whites, and as it fades to the farthest end, it gets red and yellow. In the middle, it's more like pinks and purples. So it's like a fade of hues. And then over here, we have a butterfly milkweed, a Asclepias genus, that's also native to this area. So here we have Tithonia rotundifolia, which is known as Mexican sunflower. And we've been informed by our grounds crew, who's from Mexico, this is actually a weed down there. But up here we grow it as an annual. It's a great orange flower. It's probably about half the height of what it's going to be by the end of the summer. It's a great plant, super heat and humidity tolerant, good garden plant. Welcome back. We have here Queen Anne's lace. There's different types. This genus and species is Dacus Curota. There's also, you may have heard of Ami majus. There's also Ami visnaga, which is the native one, but here we have the Dacus Curota. It's a really good cut. This is what's called a cool flower, so it's interesting, its biology, in that it'll seed in the summer, it'll go dormant, and then it'll actually germinate when it gets cooler in the fall, and then it'll overwinter. All winter long, it'll develop a really deep taproot, and then all of a sudden in the spring, it just explodes out of the ground like this. So it'll hang around for maybe about till June or July, and all of these seed heads will be full of seeds for next year, but we cut on them for the bi-weekly flower arrangements here at the Dixon. So here we are back in the perennial border, and we wanted to highlight this plant, which the British call Nefopia, but the Americans call Nefopia. I personally like Nefopia better, but who's counting? So this plant's actually from South Africa. It's a really good garden plant. As long as you keep it deadheaded, it should keep blooming. Really drought tolerant once established. Likes our heat and humidity. And you can see here, it's a little towards the front of the border, and it's a little taller. And the trick with those sorts of plants are, as long as you can see through them, you can place a taller plant towards the front of the border. So I hope you enjoyed the extravaganza of the changing blooms, and you come see the flowers at the Dixon Gallery and Gardens.